Winterspiele München 1972 für eröffnet.
And he was there on the second floor. Suddenly I saw the window opened, the curtains opened, and I see Andre in front of the window. I saw how he was pushed with the rifle, but back into the room. The windows closed, the curtains closed, and that is really the last time I saw him alive. But at least I knew he was still alive.
בפעם האחרונה שפגשתי את המאמן שלי, זה היה בחנייה של המגורים, ומשם הם הלכו למגורים שלהם. הוא אמר לי שמחר בבוקר אנחנו ניפגש, והמחר בבוקר הזה לא היה.
I was just so shattered about the whole experience because I never volunteered for such a thing. I have no idea what was going to happen, and I know if they do things, they pull the first team out and they send the second team in. So I never thought I'd be involved in anything like this.
And this is a certain amount of speculation, but I think she obviously was recruited by Mossad because of her resourcefulness and intelligence and her ability to act.
כשהייתי בגיל 12, פגשתי את המאמן שלי. אני זוכרת ריצה אחת של רצנו 60 מטר. הוא התחרה יחד איתי, יחד עם כל הילדים, ואני ניצחתי אותו. תפס אותי בצד, שאותי הוא מכין לטווח ארוך, הוא מכין אותי לאולימפיאדה. אני זוכרת פה את טקס הפתיחה שבאנו לפה. זו הייתה ממש חוויה לראות פה מכל העולם, צבעים, דגלים. זו הייתה גאווה מאוד, מאוד חזקה. ובמיוחד זה שאנחנו על אדמת גרמניה באים בתור נציגים ממדינת ישראל.
During those Olympic Games, the Olympic village here was exactly what an Olympic village should be like. People meeting each other, talking, laughing, dancing. They had chess plays here, they played ping pong, all through this village. It was very much fun here. I especially remember one day, we were walking here and suddenly Andre saw the fencing team from Lebanon. So he said, Anki, I'm going to talk to them. And I said, are you nuts? Because they're from Lebanon, and Israel is still in a state of war with Lebanon. So I stayed a little bit behind, and he went forward. And I was amazed, but they were talking and smiling and laughing, and like there is no war at all. And I never forget his face when he turned around and came back towards me here. And he said, you know what, Anki, this is what I meant. This is a symbol of what the Olympics should be like.
אני באתי לאולימפיאדה, מסתבר בשיא כושרי. זאת אומרת, הייתי גם צעירה, בת 19 וחצי. בשיא המהירות שהייתי בחיים שלי. אחת זה, אני כאילו מתארת את עצמי כמו סוס שאימנו אותו, באו לאולימפיאדה ושחררו. והתוצאות מראות על זה. כל ריצה שלי שברתי שיאים. שיאים ברמה מאוד גבוהה, שאני הייתי צריכה לשבור את עצמי כל הזמן, זה היה לי קשה. ככל שזה היה שמח, ככל שזה היה עליז, ככל שזה היה כיף פה, הגעתי קרובה לפיינל, ובאמצע כאילו חתכו את זה עם סכין חדה, כמו עריפת ראש, וככה זה הסתיים בצורה הכי אכזרית שאני יכולה לתאר.
Just after the meeting with the Lebanese, we went for 2 days to Holland because our baby daughter was in the hospital, crying all 24 hours of the day. Nobody understood why. Andre had to go back. He only got 2 days off. But I said, I'm going to stay here in Holland and take care of the baby. We finished your competitions. In a week, we are going to see each other again. You know, he goes back with the delegation. I go back with the baby and everything, you know. So I stayed in Holland, and in the morning, the next, you know, at the 5th of September, my parents came to my bedroom and they said, Anki, how many people are in the Israeli delegation? And I just opened my eyes, you know. I said, I think 20 or something, maybe 22, I don't know exactly. I said, why do you ask this at 7 o'clock in the morning, you know?
Good afternoon. I'm Jim McKay speaking to you live just outside the Olympic Village in Munich, West Germany. The peace of what have been called the Serene Olympics was shattered just before dawn this morning, about 5 o'clock, when Arab terrorists, armed with submachine guns, faces blackened, climbed the fence, went to the headquarters of the Israeli team, and immediately killed one man, 2 shots in the head.
וב-6 בבוקר שומעת דפיקה בדלת.
And the latest report is that one more has been killed.
ואז חשבתי שמעירים אותי, שאולי אני מאחרת לתחרות. אז אמרתי, רגע, ולפני שפתחתי את הדלת, לבשתי בגדי ספורט.
German police, of course, are there. The army is there. Now, coming out, the thing got more bizarre and more eerie. See the man with the stocking mask on his face. Weird.
ואני פותחת את הדלת, ועומדות השחיינית שאליה באו קודם, שלומית, ועומדת זאת שהייתה אחראית על הפרוזדור, והם אומרים לי, נכנסו מחבלים לביתן של הספורטאים.
They had set a deadline of noon, which is just an hour and 15 minutes ago, saying that they were going to kill all of their hostages at that time. That deadline obviously has passed. There has been no more action that we know of.
It was the first time that the Olympics were televised live, so you could follow it and you could see what was happening here.
Here's the man with the white hat.
I sat in front of the TV 21 hours. Of course, I wanted first immediately to go back to Munich because I was here all the time. But the security people of the embassy, they said, don't go there because there's no way to communicate with you. Thousands and thousands of people are outside of the gates and you will get lost there and they won't let you in.
עד שהחליטו, ואנחנו רואים את כל המשא ומתן שמתנהל, וכל העולם רואה. ואנחנו שומעים כל הזמן אולטימטום. אם לא תשחררו 200 מחבלים שנמצאים בכלא בישראל, אנחנו כל שעתיים נרצח מישהו ונזרוק אותו.
First they said that they were going to kill the hostages by noon.
It was terrible because I thought, well, Andre might be the next that they are going to kill.
They extended that deadline to 5 o'clock, moved it back to 3, again to 5.
The last time I saw him alive was at around 5 in the afternoon. At this spot here, in front of the building, there was the crisis team. The minister of Bavaria, of the Federal Republic, the Egyptian ambassador, everybody was standing here. And he was there on the 2nd floor up. And I saw that he did not wear his glasses. And I felt that so humiliating for him because I knew that he couldn't see without his glasses. I saw how he was pushed with the rifle back into the room, the windows closed, the curtains closed. And that is really the last time I saw him alive.
The terrorists brought the Israelis down an underground car park and to a bus.
וזה היה בדיוק מתחת לבניין איפה שאנחנו היינו. ואני מסתכלת ואני לא רואה את המאמן, ואני רואה את המחבלים. אני רואה את המחבלים איך שהם הולכים, כאילו עם מלכי העולם, הם השולטים פה.
The guerrillas have just announced that they are demanding to be allowed to fly out of Germany.
The Germans agreed to let the Arabs take their hostages to the heliport, still inside the village.
I still remember my mother said, oh, you know, at least they're doing something. At least they're going to take them away, and then they might negotiate. I said, Ma, this is the end of them. Because why? The Germans did not want this drama, you know, inside their fun Olympic village. They wanted them out of there. They wanted to continue with the Olympic Games.
עכשיו, שהם אומרים, מבקשים ממני שאני אתחרה, שאמשיך להתחרות. אמרתי, איך זה יכול להיות? המאמן שלי הלך, ויום כזה של מתח, האם אני אהיה מסוגל?
Originally, they said that the hostages were safe. Now that has been changed.
אז בא הרופא של המשלחת, אותי הכניסו לאיזה חדר צדדי, שאני אישן, כדי שמחר אני אעלה לריצה.
All hell is broken loose out there.
השינה הייתה לא רגועה, הייתה עם חלומות.
And they took all the Israelis, together with the 8 terrorists, they took them to this underground parking garage downstairs in the bus, and they took them to the 2 waiting helicopters. And then I saw on live TV the 2 helicopters taking off from the Olympic Village with all the Israelis bound one to the other, you know, tied to each other. And then they went to a small military airport, not used until then.
That there is still shooting going on, that there's a report of a burning helicopter.
השאר החבר'ה הם ישבו בסלון והמשיכו לצפות בטלוויזיה על מה הולך להיות.
As a kid, my father used to say, our greatest hopes and our worst fears are seldom realized.
אז הם שמעו כבר שהודיעו באמצע הלילה שכולם הלכו.
Our worst fears have been realized tonight. They're all gone.
כשפקחתי את העיניים וראיתי את הפנים שלהם, הבנתי מה היה.
We have only the strength of a great ideal. I'm sure the public will agree that we cannot allow a handful of terrorists to destroy this nucleus of international cooperation and goodwill.
It is in deep sorrow that the Israeli delegation leaves the Federal Republic of Germany today.
The games must go on.
The surviving members of the team to go back into the rooms and to gather the personal belongings of those that were killed. The scene was incredible. The blood was all over. The blood went down the stairs even. They brought food, but nobody ate, which was all on the floor.
אני הבטחתי שאני לא אבכה בטלוויזיה יותר שאני מספרת, אבל כשאת מדברת, את רואה את התמונות. היומיים האלה זה דברים שנחקק בראש, וזה לא... אני מנסה להימנע מזה, אבל כשזה חוזר, זה כואב תמיד מחדש.
There was a picture which I'll never forget in my life. I see how the sportsmen are walking tied hand to feet and to other one, you know. It's the same Germany. This is the way Jews were taken to the, you know, I couldn't stop my tears.
שלוקחים את הארונות ומכניסים, באותה מטוס שלנו מכניסים את הארונות. ואת יושבת במטוס ואת לא יודעת איך לקלוט את זה, איך זה יכול להיות. את רוצה, את באת לאולימפיאדה עם כל התקוות וכל להגשים חלום. ויושב לידך מאמן, ועכשיו הוא למטה.
When I came back from Munich after this whole tragedy, I was very angry, very, very angry. And my parents, of course, they said, look, what are you going to do? And I said, to tell you the truth, I don't know yet. I have to think about it. And they said to me, of course, we would love for you to come back to Holland. Your financial situation will be much better, your family situation, your security situation. But they said to me, if you decide to stay in Israel, we totally accept that, and we will come as many times as you allow us to come. So it took me a few days, and I said, this is the place where I have to be. I will never be able to explain to Anouk, to the baby, who her father was or why it happened if I live in Amsterdam in a beautiful house and whatever.
אני חושבת שקודם כל ישראל הפיקה מזה הרבה לקחים. הם הבינו כמה הספורט הוא שגריר מצוין למדינה, איך הספורטאים מייצגים את הצד הטוב של המדינה. ההזדהות הזאת עם הספורט גרמה גם לשינוי מבחינת התקדמות בספורט בארץ. התקשורת רצתה לשמוע מה היה, התעניינות, והרגשתי שאני מתחילה לספר ולחיות את המאמן שלי מחדש, את כל אלה שהלכו מחדש.
במידה והיינו מפסיקים, היינו עושים בדיוק את מה שהמחבלים רצו. בעצם היותי ממשיכה בספורט, זה זיכרון לאותם אלה
פתאום הרגשתי את החום של האנשים שמזדהים איתנו, שזה לא משהו שחלף ולא היה דבר כזה. הרגשתי פה את התרומה שאני נותנת לזה, וזה עשה לי הרגשה מאוד טובה. וכשאני חוזרת, אני באתי ארצה ואני אמרתי, זה המשימה שלי עכשיו. זה מה שאני הולכת לעשות. אני אחזור לאולימפיאדה, לא ניתן לשבור את הרוח שלנו, הישראלית, שישברו אותנו בדבר הזה. כי זה מה שרוצים, להחרים אותנו מכל מקום. החייתי אותה מחדש, הגעתי לגמר אולימפי, וזה היה החלום של המאמן שלי. שוב שברתי את השיאים שלי שם, גם כן ב100 משוכות. הרגשתי את כל עם ישראל על הכתפיים שלי, שהם ידעו שאני ממשיכה משימה של המאמן. אז זה היה משהו רגשי ומקצועי והכל ביחד. הרגשתי מן הרגשה אחרת לגמרי מחלום של תמימות, להגיע לאולימפיאדה וכן הלאה. זה כאן היה משהו הרבה יותר חזק.
I certainly didn't want revenge, but understood that the state might take a different stance.
The terror has become a political instrument. And in order to get rid of it is to eliminate headquarters of terror. This is the case with Black September. They created the kidnap of the Israeli team in Munich. Ali Hassan Salama, he was the operation officer. And he was their leader. You see, in some cases, we can't get hold of them. We had to get rid of them.
I remember that we were invited by Golda Meir, who was the prime minister, to come to the office, and she talked about what happened in Munich and people responsible and what they did and what they didn't do and whatever. And then she promised us that those that were responsible, we are going to chase them till the end of the world.
האנטי-ישראלי היא חובתנו הטבעית. הפעילות הטרוריסטית מחליפה שיטות.
So I looked at her. I said, and then? She said, well, it's pretty clear what is going to be then.
שהבית כולו, על כל חבריו, נסער ומודאג ומזועזע על מה שקרה. על מה שקרה במינכן, מה שקורה, ומלא חרדה למה שעלול לקרות.
I did not grow up in Israel, but, you know, and maybe I'm naive, but it's not possible to catch them and to put them on trial because you're going to kill more people and more kids will be without a father and whatever. Then she looked at me and she said, it doesn't work at this side of the ocean and this part of the world. It doesn't work like this. If we could have done that, of course we would have done that, but it doesn't work like this. So.
Over the last 18 months, a series of Arabs have mysteriously been blown up or shot dead in several European capitals. But on each occasion, the killers had left few clues behind them, and local police were unable to make arrests.
Ali Hassan Salama, he is a constant murderer of Jews, and this is the safest way to get rid of it.
Under the order of Golda Meir and her government, a secret service team was assembled. They were supposed to target Yasser Arafat's protégé, Ali Hassan Salama. He was the operation chief of Black September.
This kind of war has defense, has intelligence, spying, all these sort of things.
She was Patricia Roxburgh, Canadian. Introduced herself as a freelance photographer working for a French picture agency. I first met her at a party with at a friend's flat in Paris. She stood out because she was very vivacious. Tall, raven-haired, very lively eyes, strong. But also there was a mystery about her.
She was one kind of qualities. All what you can wish, I think, in a person was in this woman. Very intelligent, always with a good spirit around her.
סילביה בחורה אנרגטית מאוד, גדולה, מאוד פוטוגנית. היא הייתה אשת יחסי ציבור מלידה.
Very charming and very, very good at getting people to she wanted them.
I wanted to see her more, yes. And then we started seeing each other a bit more.
אני לא רוצה להיכנס לנושא.
She was very attractive. And this was important.
She puts all the intensity of the person and she gets that person to flower up and get all the information. And when she got what she wanted, she moves on.
I was a journalist with Agence France Presse, and I think that's, looking back on it, was she wanted, I think, to link up with journalists who might travel and give her an excuse to go to places. And so she said, let's go and get the first interview with Colonel Gaddafi. But clearly, I mean, looking back on it, her interests in taking pictures of Colonel Gaddafi were not just journalistic.
Sylvia decided that she's going to make Aliyah and devote herself for the state of Israel, no matter the price will be.
I thought instead of making army service, I wanted to contribute to something. I thought it like to be very low-level work. Very often you use women as cover-ups. You can sit in a cafe for hours with a woman, but a man, you can't sit there alone. That's what was talked about. Not full-time work, and definitely not a mission like this.
The main value of Maran was that she spoke Norwegian well.
It was a very confusing situation when I started understanding that I was involved in something more serious that I anticipated and I haven't agreed to come with. It was kind of too late to go back home. But there was such an emergency. They had the lead that Ali Hassan Salami was on a strange move to Norway. I had started just for a few days a course. I was not trained for anything particularly, so I didn't know anything.
Well, the majority who saw him thought that he is really Ali Hassan Salami.
They had showed me a photograph, and I said, it's not the same body build. And on the photograph, he has very special eyebrows, so I don't think it could be him. Sylvia also said it wasn't him. They evidently decided to go ahead anyhow.
And it was an Israeli tragedy.
The Israeli assassination squad had come to Lillehammer on the trail of Ben Salami, the Arab behind the Munich Olympics attack.
The whole atmosphere was so uncalculated, so forced. It was extremely confusing.
The man they were shadowing led them to Bouchiki, a 30-year-old Moroccan waiter.
And that's why everything failed, because it wasn't well prepared.
The Israeli claim that Bouchiki was a top man in Black September has not been proved by the Norwegian police, who think the wrong man was killed.
But I was just, they didn't listen to anything I said.
They chose to ambush Bouchiki as he and his pregnant wife came off a late-night bus. Two men, unmasked, used .22 pistols with silencers to kill him.
I was just so shattered about the whole experience because I never volunteered for such a thing.
The same type of weapon used in the assassination of Arabs in Rome and Paris.
I went into a minor shock.
6 of the gang were arrested, surrounded by an unprecedented security screen.
Politikammeret er forresten omgitt av usedvanlig tykke murer akkurat I dag. Det er ikke mange konkrete opplysninger som slipper ut, noe som for øvrig vil framgå av vårt intervju med etterforskningslederen siden. Foreløpig er altså 4 utlendinger fengslet, 2 kvinner og 2 menn. De oppgir svenske, kanadiske og britiske statsborgerskap og opererer med flere sett legitimasjonspapirer. Fremdeles etterlyses 2 menn, antakelig de 2 som skjøt ned og drepte Bouchiki med 12 skudd på åpen gate.
Well, it was one day in 1973 in Saigon where I was reporting on the war in Vietnam, and I went round to the Reuters news agency office, and there was a bulletin, meaning a very urgent snap story, Reuters vernacular, from Norway, saying that there had been a murder in a town called Lillehammer. And they listed the names of the killers, or the alleged killers at the time, and one of them was my former lover from Paris, named as Patricia Roxburgh, a freelance photographer, who was subsequently identified, in fact, as Sylvia Raphael from South Africa. So I was absolutely flabbergasted. You know, it was a bit of a daze, really. So I questioned myself into why I had never had any suspicions. But, I mean, she deceived everyone in that respect. I know she didn't deceive me in other ways, but she was obviously very well trained and kept up this front.
בפעם הראשונה אני הכרתי את סילביה כשהיא הופיעה בבית המשפט, במשפט של לילהמר. היה מרשים מאוד איך שהיא הופיעה ומה שהיא אמרה. הלחץ שלנו לקבל חנינה זה היה בשביל גבר וסילביה, כי הם קיבלו את הכי הרבה 5.5 שנים.
Well, I got involuntarily murdered. I was there 15 months.
אני כבר לא זוכר בדיוק כמה זמן היא ישבה, אבל הורידו לה את השליש של התנהגות טובה ושוחררה.
Those on the Mossad team in Lillehammer, like Mariana and Sylvia, they really paid the price.
I was in the women prison outside Oslo, and you kept in isolation. You don't meet anybody else. And in the beginning, no radio, no papers, no nothing. It wasn't like any torture or anything. It's Norway. So in a way, it was difficult because everybody was very friendly.
If one has to sit in a prison, this is the prison. Sylvia didn't have a cell. She had an apartment.
Sylvia, she was put in another corridor. And actually it was a corridor under repair, so she could walk outside there, but I had one room, very small room.
She had a kitchen, a bedroom, a dining room, salon. The second floor of the women's prison was hers.
She felt she was both Jewish and Christian, so I think the Jewish holidays didn't mean anything because she never had them at home. But it was an opportunity to have a party and have the guys coming over, and where we had salmon, and somebody wanted to give us champagne, but you're not allowed to drink alcohol in a prison.
The Mossad and the Israeli embassy hired a local lawyer, which was on his honeymoon. So he stopped with his wife in Lillehammer, and he told his wife, I have to visit a new client here. Somebody asked me, and will you wait in the car? And it will not take long. I just have to get to know her, and we will continue on our honeymoon. So he went into jail to see Sylvia. He was with her over 3 hours. He went out and he told his wife, no more honeymoon, no more marriage. He just fell in love in Sylvia. This was a real love story.
מריאן וסילביה, שני עולמות. שני עולמות. מריאן לא היה לה תפקיד ממשי. אני חושב, זה ה-interpretation שלי. She was taken because of her mother tongue, Swedish, which is very similar to the Norwegian.
I was kind of dragged into it without any control, nothing, and I never belonged to it.
אף אחד לא הכריח אותה. היא בחרה את המקצוע הזה.
I was advised by the prison managers, a woman, and she told me, kind of stay in the shadow and let Sylvia take all the glory. Or, for example, my parents sent flowers every week, and they photographed the flowers outside the prison. They said, flowers for Sylvia, for my secret love.
קיבלתי אותה בשדה התעופה. מסרו לי אותה, עלינו למטוס.
I was taken there with these people who picked me up at the airport, kind of.
לא יודע אם אמרה לי שלום, לא אמרה לי שלום. הייתה מאוד שתקנית.
And on the plane they gave me champagne. Flying first class.
פתאום היא אומרת לי, האומנם אני חופשית עכשיו? אמרתי, כן, את חופשית.
And they dragged me out of the plane before everybody down the stairs, and I was a little champagne.
זה היה הכל, לא מה שלומך, או לא תודה בשביל כל מה שעשית, או לא עשית, שום דבר.
And then when everybody left, it was such a wonderful thing to be able to lock the door myself from inside. Because I was sitting in a very small room, but that was locked from outside.
No, ריחמתי עליה.
It felt very good, kind of, you know, your control over your space.
I met Sylvia only after she went out of the jail and she came to the kibbutz. And I remember the day she was released. I can cry today, you know, from excitement. How the whole kibbutz was waiting in the gate of the kibbutz, waiting for her with big signs, welcome home.
The situation when I came back also was very difficult because I wasn't part of the Mossad, and so I didn't get too much support, a little bit, but to my friends I couldn't talk about it.
Even when she would come to the kibbutz for a certain time, not for just a few days visit, she would put on herself working clothes, and she was like everyone. Especially she worked in the hatchery. She loved to do it.
I was in between by myself, and for years it was very hard.
Sylvie behaved around her with the people like they are her best friends.
I got no support from any side, and I felt I couldn't talk to anybody.
And she really felt here in Ramat HaKovesh, her home, in Israel, to be with the Chevre, as we say, with the people of the kibbutz. She loved us, and we loved her. It was mutual.
This thing of having this terrible experience, I put the lid on it, and not dealing with this, of course, affects you for years. And I was in quite a bad shape for many years until I slowly overcame it.
ואז החלטתי לתלות את הנעליים, להגדיל את המשפחה, ילדתי. בד בבד אני למדתי הוראה, והתחלתי את החלום הראשון שלי להיות מורה לספורט. התחלתי לעבוד עם ילדים. והתחלתי לעשות 1, 2, 3 לעבור, 1, 2, 3 לעבור, 1, 2, 3 לעבור. וצא לדרך! הופה, זהו! זה היה כיף. אהבתי דווקא לעבוד עם ילדים בגלל שהם אמיתיים. יש לי סבלנות לחכות. כי את יודעת שבכל מקום שהולכת, שפוגשים אותי, אז שואלים אותי, האם את עדיין רצה? אוקיי, אני עדיין רצה, והשיא עדיין שלי, 45 שנה. זה באמת, אני חושבת שזה שיא בתוך שיא, כי אין עוד מדינה ש100 מטר לא נשבר, כי 100 מטר זה אחת הריצות הפופולריות בענף והאתלטיקה. לצערי, אני מחזיקה את זה, אני מחכה לכישרון. הצטיינות בספורט, אז זה הדברים היותר חשובים. אז על ידי זה שנתתי השראה לבנות ולשבור את השיא שלי, זה היה ההיילט, אז עכשיו שיתחילו לחשוב קצת על אולימפי, תחרויות בינלאומיות. גורמת להשראה שיכולים, שאפשר להשיג, אפילו בדרך, לא דרך שאני עשיתי את זה.
I followed him because I fell in love with him, and it didn't matter where he came from, what he was doing, where he was going. I just wanted to be with him. I was totally in love with him. I cannot explain in words what real love is, you know, that you cannot even stand it when you're not together, and that you are only waiting for him to come home and waking up in the morning next to this face that it was wonderful. It was the best time of my life. So then we went to Israel, and people that I knew in Amsterdam, they said, "Do you know what this place is next to the Lebanese border?" I said, "I don't care. He's going to be there as well, so we will be there." That was my happiest year of my life with him.
I remember that when I was about 3 or 4 years old, I was playing with a neighbor's kid. And he said to me, Arabs killed your father. And my mother tells me that I came home and I said, is that true? And so then she had to sit down and explain more details about it.
I want her to understand the situation here. And I also want her to grow up without hating, because not everybody killed her father. It's only a very small group. And she has to know this. And this was, for me, incredibly important to make that point, because she also has to live with, you know, with the facts. And she could hate also because she grew up without a father. In Atlanta, at the Olympic Games in '96, Ilana Romano, the other widow, and myself, we decided to take the 14 children, there were 14 orphans, to the Olympic Games, and for once to show them what the Olympic Games are all about. Because their whole life they lived in the shadow of the Olympics. You know, Olympics, that was something bad. Their fathers were killed there. So. And we said, you have to see the glory of it. You have to see the enormous impact when these delegations come walking in and everybody stands up and applauds them and everything. There we are sitting, and suddenly I heard that for the first time, a Palestinian delegation was walking inside the Olympic stadium. You know, I called the kids and I said, look, what are you guys going to do when this Palestinian delegation is coming in and you're watching it? And they all looked at me and they said, well, the same as we are going to do with all the other delegations, you know, we are going to welcome them, applaud them and everything. They have nothing to do with what happened in Munich. These are athletes like Dad was.
You understand that when the Palestinian delegation comes out, that they're athletes only and not politicians. And the 11 athletes died because people couldn't tell the difference between politicians and athletes.
That was the moment. I said, if this is happening, if this is in the hearts of these kids, something we did okay.
On one hand, my father was always very present in our life. Right after what happened in Munich, my mother started being very active. She created a fencing competition, an international fencing competition in his memory. She wanted to take the good concepts of the Olympic Games, of fair play and brotherhood and nations coming together and bring the positive out of what happened.
And I did that for 14 years. Every year I had this gathering to show that it is possible through sports to unite and to understand each other.
With all the love in the world, many times I thought, okay, you know, she could have moved on. She could have said he was a lovely man and I loved him, but life goes on, and she didn't.
I never stopped trying to get recognition from the International Olympic Committee. I came already in Montreal at the Olympic Games in '76. And I asked for a minute of silence or, you know, to recognize what happened.
This is Esther Roth, a hurdler, the only remaining member of that tragic 1972 Israeli team in Munich. 47 in
there. אני לוקחת אתכם עכשיו לחזרה אחרי 45 שנה לאצטדיון האולימפי. אני לובשת את הבגדים שנתנו לי פה מפומה. זה בגדים של לפני 45 שנה. זה מחזיר אותי גם כן לימים ההם. שבאתי לפה בהתרגשות גדולה, בפעם הראשונה לאולימפיאדה. ועזבנו בצורה הכי עצובה את המקום הזה.
אז עכשיו אנחנו עם שיאנית ישראל החדשה בריצת 100 מטרים, דיאנה וייסמן.
It's for me it was a proud to give her this torch. הגיע הזמן באמת לשבור את השיא אחרי 46 שנה. אני שמחתי מאוד שדיאנה עשתה את זה, שאנחנו נראה שיש התקדמות במדינה, שיש אתלטיקה במדינה, שיראו שהתקדמות, ואולי בעקבות זה עוד בנות יבואו לעשות ספורט.
מה שאמרת, אסתר, היא דמות לחיקוי בשבילי, כמובן. אני מאוד שואפת להיות כמוה, זאת התוכנית, זאת השאיפה שלי להגיע לאולימפיאדה, אם זה ב-2020 בטוקיו, או אם זה 2024 בפריז.
לפני מינכן ואחרי מינכן, שונה לגמרי. אחרי מינכן הייתה התעוררות להבנה כמה חשוב ספורט לייצג את המדינה. שלא ישמעו רק בישראל, רק לגבי זכות הקיום שלנו, המלחמות שלנו מסביב, שיש, את יודעת, אנחנו נמצאים במדינה באמצע מדינות ומסביב לאויבים שלנו. וכל הזמן שומעים על המדינה הקטנה שלנו, שומעים בהקשרים האלה. אז לא, אנחנו צריכים להתייחס למדינה שלנו כמדינה נורמלית לכל דבר, שעוסקת בספורט.
Let's not forget what happened, so that we will make a vow that this will never happen again, that we will do everything. And they were never willing, because in Montreal they said, there are 22 Arab nations participating in the Olympics, and they will leave and they will go home. I said, well, let them. If they don't understand what the Olympics are all about, then they should go home. The next time, for example, in Barcelona, they said to me, you're bringing politics into the Olympic Games. I said, I'm bringing politics? You're the biggest political organization there is. Then they said to me, after like 30 years or something, they said, it's too early yet.
Citizens of the world, welcome to Athens.
I said, what do you want me to come when I'm 80 or something? If you have a problem to say, let us not forget what happened to the Israeli Jews or whatever, don't mention that they were Jews or Israelis. Say that they were part of the Olympic family. They were athletes just like you guys are. And then he said, yeah, but the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games is such a joyful occasion. We don't want to do something sad like this.
Gentlemen, please pause to respect our...
When I looked at the opening ceremony, you know, they remembered the terror attack in London. And he said, there are 46 Arab nations. My hands are tied. I said, no, your hands were not tied. The hands of my husband and his teammates, and not only his hands were tied, their feet were tied also to the furniture in the room. They finally came around.
A memorial ceremony
was in Rio
on Sunday night in honor of the 11 Israeli athletes
where
and coaches.
the head of the president of the International Olympic Committee had this memorial service. He called out the names. He had a minute of silence. And I looked around and I saw all these buildings of the Olympic Village. And I said, André, it took 44 years, but now you have it. Finally, you and your teammates, the recognition that was long due to you, because you came to the Olympic Games in order to participate in this festival of love and brotherhood and peace and whatever. And you all came home in coffins, and this the world should not forget.
I can only be very grateful that they've done this work, because 50 years later almost, here we are still talking about the story, still mentioning it, and it's mostly because they didn't let the world forget.
Of what happened in Munich. Because we know that those who forget history are bound to repeat it. And people looked at me many times and they said, you know, here she is again. I said, yes, I will be here again until you do the right thing.
When I was in my early 20s, I had the chance to go to Germany, and I was with some friends. And we wanted to go to the Olympic Village and see what happened. And just the fact that we came there and we had to ask people, and nobody knew what we were talking about. And it just felt so strange that here at this place, the most important and worst thing of my life happened, and nobody had a clue. And finally, after a long time, we found the address, and I was amazed to learn that people just lived there. And all I wanted to do was knock on their door and say, you know what happened here? I couldn't believe that there was such a very, very tiny little memorial that you could, if you blink, you miss it. And I was just standing there and not believing that my father and his friends were sitting tied by their arms and legs, experiencing horrible hours in this exact place, and life just went on, and people just live there, and nobody knows anything about it. And it was really traumatic for me.
Finally, after 45 years, this beautiful memorial was erected on the very grounds of the Munich Olympic Village.
Andrei Spitzer, Fechttrainer, 27 Jahre. Andrei Spitzer, זיכרונו לברכה. Kehat Shor, Trainer der Sportschützen. David Berger, זיכרונו לברכה. Marx Zahn Friedman, יוסף רומנו, יעקב אנטון פליגרבאואר, בן 32 שנה.
He's shown here as he really was, crazy about his baby daughter. Now, this is a picture when we got married in Holland. As a fencing trainer, his students came and surprised us when we came out. And this is the mascot of the Olympic Games of Munich. And when I came into the room to take his personal things, there was really nothing to be taken because everything was bloodied and so on. But the only things I took was this little dog that he bought for the baby, our baby Anouk. And we still have it, of course, still today. And from all the athletes, you know, we have personal things. They were family men. They had children. They did all kinds of things. And it was important for me that this would be shown, that they were not only a name, but that they see who these people were.
Ein Sprecher des Innenministeriums hier in München gab bekannt, dass die Verhandlungen mit den Attentätern Brundage hat erklärt, dass die Olympischen Spiele fortgesetzt würden. So viel zu den
The games must go on.
Unbelievable.
כיום אני פרשתי כבר מעבודה, והמטרה שלי היה גם, אחת המטרות, זה לייצג את הנרצחים. אני הרגשתי שאני הדוברת שלהם, הפה שלהם. אז מינכן מרגישה שאני איזו דמות ייצוגית של הנושא הזה. מזכירה אותם כל פעם מחדש. והייתי מתכונסת בעצמי. זה שאני יצאתי החוצה, זה שדיברתי, זה שסיפרתי, שיתפתי את כולם. זה עשה משהו שאני מאוד שמחה שעשיתי את זה. כי הייתה לנו הרגשה שהיינו מתו, לא קרה כלום, האולימפיאדה ממשיכה, החיים חוזרים, וזה מאוד מאוד כאב. אנחנו השארנו שם את הדם של היקירים שלנו. ואנשים רוצים לשמוע, וכל פעם אני צריכה להתחיל מחדש, אז זה פשוט נהיה חלק ממני. ואני מסתבר שאני עדיין ממשיכה, הנה גם ברעיון הזה איתך, פרנסין.
I'm convinced that if the world would have reacted differently in Munich, because Munich was more or less the opening shot for international terrorism. There was terrorism before, of course, but not on a scale that the whole world was watching. If even the International Olympic Committee, which is a very powerful organization, if they would have taken a stand and condemned it, we would not be in this situation as it is now. It's a crazy situation.
Crowds running in panic.
For the last 30 years, I've been working like a foreign correspondent for Dutch and Belgian television and radio, reporting on the Middle East. I'm often in the Gaza Strip, For me, it's very important to show what is happening here. I try to show both sides objectively, although objectivity doesn't really exist, but, you know, without this thing, this cloud that hangs in the back of my head, without having my history interfere with my opinions or with my subjects or whatever.
In the Middle East.
Duidelijk aangeslagen Yasser Arafat. In Tel Aviv is onze correspondente Ankie Reges. Ankie, jij was getuige van de moordaanslag. Je was erbij, hè?
Ja, ik was vanavond op
For example, when I had to interview Yasser Arafat. But I must admit, the first interview I did with him, my microphone was shaking like this. And I just had to, just for the mere fact that I'm face to face with this person who is responsible for the death of my husband, of Andre. But the second time I interviewed him, and the third and the fourth and whatever, you know, he never knew who I was, because I used a different name, because it was not relevant also for the interview. And then I got over it, and I was able to see him, you know, as the person that I'm interviewing without putting all my personal input.
What is this? It's still, I don't feel like talking about it. It wasn't a story I was so proud of. And when we started with this, when I took out the papers, I sorted it a little bit, but I haven't got to reading all the letters. I got a lot of letters from people. And now when I took them out after 40 years, I didn't remember all these people writing. My sister ordered cuttings from different papers, but I haven't looked at it yet. So I don't know really what's in the cuttings. Here's the parties. Here says, is the government afraid for the Arabs and that I don't get pardon? I looked at the paper, but I haven't got to dealing with it, and I'm not ready yet. I got that far that I took it out, but I haven't dealt with it. And I can only deal with one thing at a time, because I'm not completely healthy, so it's a limit what I can do. But a lot you just stay in the country house and in Sweden. Another minute, just. It's a lot of work to take care of the place. Also, my health takes time. When you have scars and it heals and you don't deal with it, it's not very much to do to these scars and too much time passed. You put the lid on it and you go back and you continue for good and worse. And that's what I've been doing all these years. In my case, I think I have a rather optimistic view of life. So, and I'm curious as what's happening and new things. And that's why I don't remember so much the whole thing. I leave it behind. So that's how I deal with it. I wanted to leave this story and return to life, and I don't want to be too much connected with it. Disconnected. I didn't want to have part of this, and I didn't think it was a story to be proud of. I just want to leave it behind me. I chose all the time to stay off the limelight, but it's very important for your identity to be able to face up the world under your own name. So when I came back, they wanted me to change name, which I refused to do.
I don't know, I mean, I think that although Sylvia had a vivaciousness about her, there was possibly a loneliness in her life because it was a life of deception. So although she was very resilient at the trial and acted as if it didn't matter that they'd killed an innocent man in front of his pregnant wife, it must have been a moment when, it must have been afterwards when she got out of prison and she fell in love with the man she spent the rest of her life with, her defense lawyer. It must have been a moment when she rethought her life, I think, and reconsidered what was important and went back to her roots in South Africa and ultimately lived a quiet existence. And I like that phrase that she used in talking to an Israeli journalist once. You know, I want to live in honesty. And I think it's very telling, actually. She was living a double life. And you can keep that up, I mean, for a certain length of time, and then something goes wrong, and all you've built up is suddenly exploded and shattered. She was suddenly found to be living a lie. And I think that's the admission of that is hard to come to terms with.
Voices of the birds around here, a little bit wind of the trees. She couldn't, I think she couldn't choose a better place to lie down and be peaceful with herself for the end of her.
I don't think there's healing for a murder. This loss will go with me till the last day of my life.
I think that saved her. The fact that she was so focused on commemoration and getting justice, I think that was her only way to survive and to keep my father alive.
I owe it to him, because I knew who he was, and he was the gentlest and most peace-loving person. And to think that they tied his hands and his feet, knocked off his glasses, broke his bones, I think this is unacceptable. This I will never forgive anyone for doing this.
My dad must have been the love of her life, because this Dutch girl, for her to be willing to leave a very comfortable life and come to Israel 47 years ago and sacrifice all of that for him, it must have been love.
I cannot explain to you how I hate this place, because for me, this place was the end of the world, because my husband, was killed here together with 7 of his teammates, and they were killed here on this airfield. I'm still angry when I think about it. I saw what happened here on live television. I saw the 2 helicopters landing from the Olympic Village right here. And, you know, they were 10 meters away from the building. And I said, how is everybody watching outside of the building and not doing anything? And here they just sat. They had no clue that there were 8 Palestinians. They thought there were 5, so they only put 5 sharpshooters here. I asked them, why not 50? You know, if you want to finish these guys. So everything was unplanned. They made all the mistakes that you can make. When I think about this place and this building, you know, my blood boils because they were so arrogant and so incompetent. How did it happen that all of them were killed? I said, I can understand if you have a plan and there is shooting here and explosions that 1 or 2 of the people that you're trying to save are being killed. But all of them? You did not even succeed in saving 1 person?
I think she will always be busy with making sure that the Munich story is kept alive. And I hope for her that finally, after all these years, she will be able to not forget, but put it to rest. She also deserves to go on. It took too many years of her life.
So I have one more thing on my little list. I do want an independent investigation committee to really find out what happened, because the story is not that simple that 8 Palestinians came to kill 11 Israelis. We were denied access to all the documents for 20 years. Then somebody stole, who worked in the archives in Munich, he stole 80 pages. And with these 80 pages, we were successful and we got 4,000 files and hundreds of pictures. And the things that we already read are unbelievable. If you know that here, right outside of Munich, 2 weeks before the Olympic Games, they let Palestinians train in a German military camp. For what? You know, and this is just one thing. There are many, many other things that we found. And I think I owe it not only to my husband and to his friends, but also to history, that the right things will be told. And this is my last project, and then I hope I can go home, because it was a long and lonely journey.
תראה, מה את יודעת מה שאמא עשתה, היא הייתה אוכלת את הזנב. אתה רואה פה שזה מלוכלך קצת?
מה, הכניס את זה?
מסכן הכלב.
מה, למה?
כי אתה דורך עליו, לא?
לא.
Hopefully, the children, later on, when Ilana and my mother can't do it anymore, that will continue their legacy.
Oh, lieve jongen. Gewoon, זה חמוד אתה של אומה.
רק אין לי אוכל, אתה יודע, יש לי לילדים, אבל...
אז היא תדע.
כן.
בסדר.
קשה לאומה.
איפה רפאלי?
אנדי, איפה הכדור של הבייסבול? אה? איפה הכדור של הבייסבול? תגידי, לא לזרוק, לא לזרוק. זהו.
So, Mom, how was it? How was it in Germany?
Well, you know, just to get to Munich, I'm allergic, I think, to that city. It's very difficult for me to go there, to hear the language again, to see the people. But I came there for a reason. I had to give this talk at the memorial. And, you know, that's what I think I have to do. So I put all the other stuff aside. But I couldn't wait to get back, let me tell you this. Nookie, when are you going to go to Munich and see the memorial?
I can't wait to see it. I'm very sad that I didn't get to see it with all the families because I'm sure that would have been very emotional. But I have no doubt in my mind that sooner than later I'll get there, and hopefully I can't think of something more emotional than to share it with my kids. And this will always be part of their past and part of their future.
And your kids, they know about who André was, who their grandfather was.
איפה סבא אנדרי? איפה סבא אנדרי? בשמיים. שומר עלייך?
En dat komt niemand ten goede. Het kost alleen veel mensenlevens en het kost alleen ontzettend veel geld. Dus de hoop is hier van alle kanten dat het nu tot een oplossing gaat komen. Daar gaat het over. Ankie Regges voor het VRT-nieuws aan de Gazastrook.